Welcome to Studio C70 at the Committee of 70. Next month, we have Election Day. May 21st is the primary election. Huge election. Judicial offices on the ballot, a whole slew of very important city offices, mayor, city council. Just a huge election for the city of Philadelphia. Elections are like job interviews. Candidates are like the job applicants. The voters kind of like a hiring committee. And we are fortunate to have one of the job applicants for city council with us today, Katherine Gilmore Richardson. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All righty. So we only have 15 minutes here. Let's dig straight in. Okay. Why are you running?
So I think that's a very important question. And I really thought about where we are as a city. And I think that Philadelphia is really at a pivotal moment. You know, we're at a critical juncture for our city, and Philadelphia is really soaring to new heights, but we're leaving a lot of people behind. We know we have a 26% poverty rate in our city, and I think it's important for us to understand that while we are growing, we need to consider the people who are being left behind. So I decided to run for office because of that, but also now I'm a mother, and that was really the moment where I understood how important this really is and the work of the council really is. So I try to look at the city through the eyes of my children. So I have a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and I'm raising my 13-year-old bonus daughter who's a student in the Philadelphia public school system. So when I look at our city, I look at it through their eyes. So issues of, education, public safety, job creation, they all really take on a higher, more urgent purpose when you're looking at them through the eyes of children. And, I'm excited, by the opportunity to use my experience in and out of city government to create a city that all of our children can enjoy and thrive in.
Yeah. So you already mentioned that you have, some very intimate and familiar experience already with the job and with city council. Could you speak to specifically kind of what you learned along the way and what you would bring as a council member yourself?
Sure. So I think it's important for context that, people really understand the breadth of my work. So I, am born and raised here in Philadelphia, attended the Philadelphia High School for Girls, Masterman Middle School, went to college at Westchester University where I earned a master's degree in public administration. And after school, I served as a long-term substitute teacher at Overbrook High School and teaching mathematics, Algebra 1, transitional math, and the 9th grade Success Academy, but also working at the University of Pennsylvania Health System as a staffing coordinator, where we were able to do a transitional work program for people transitioning from public assistance to family supporting and sustaining jobs in the healthcare industry. But I did start out as an intern and as a volunteer in Philadelphia City Council in the office of Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown. And I worked on constituent services, just really helping people with, everyday quality of life issues. I served as a legislative aide for 5 years, working on a lot of wonderful pieces of legislation, including making the Commission for Women a permanent part of city government, our energy benchmarking for, commercial size buildings like this one, and a lot of other interesting pieces of legislation to really move our city forward in, lots of ways. But for the last 4 years, served as a chief of staff in the office of Councilwoman Reynolds Brown, learning how to operate a city council office from behind the scenes, learning how things work. And I think having that experience and understanding the process and being able to build those relationships in and out of city council and city government in general really give me a good perspective and understanding of the process, but also what needs to, change and move forward within that process. So I think having all of that experience in its totality really helps me understand how we need to, be the change that we want to see, in our city government.
Yeah, I'm curious. What pushed you towards seeking an internship? With a council member. We ask all the intern applicants here. What makes you interested in politics? What makes you interested in government?
Sure. So I didn't understand and I didn't know that I was really interested in government and politics as a high schooler, but I met Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown in 1999 as a junior at the Philadelphia High School for Girls. And she came back to talk to us about, being the oldest of 7 and having gumption and being a part of the process and being frustrated by the issues happening in her neighborhood and her community and really wanting to be the change she wanted to see. And, those were the type of things that I was working on in my community at that point. at that time, we were looking at the expansion of St. Joe's University in Winfield, and a lot of issues with college town and gown issues, and I was becoming involved in that process, and really didn't understand that that was the beginning of civic engagement, in my life. So that really, struck a chord with me. So when I was in graduate school, my professor, he said, you can't finish this program without doing an internship. And at the time, he was running for state rep, Republican in Chester County, and he said, you have to do an internship in public service. And I chose the office of Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown. I was her graduate intern, and the rest is history.
All right. And now you have all the staffing experience in city council, and you have a good sense of how that body works and how that building works.
Yeah.
What would you say would be really helpful changes with whether it's between mayor and city council as a body, as far as how they function?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it, and what I've been hearing from constituents around the city of Philadelphia, is really making the process more transparent, helping people, everyday Philadelphians really feel involved and engaged in the process of Philadelphia City Council, whether it be councilmanic prerogative, which, we've heard a lot about on the campaign trail. People just want to be informed and educated about the process and know how they can have a voice and a say in the process, and just making that more transparent so people know on the front end what the process is, and not having regret on the back end. Yeah, so I think it's really being more open, more transparent in city government, also being more engaged with the electorate and bringing everything out to the community more. I think that really helps to show that city government wants to work with the people of Philadelphia.
And then, as far as like our larger political system outside the building and run for office, this is your first run for public office, right? So what has that been like? And what changes could we have in the the pathway that you got to follow to run for office? And I know everyone runs different
Sure.
Roads, but between the ward system, our primary process, the way you end up with a certain ballot position, all that kind of stuff, what might work differently or better?
Sure. So I think that, having a lot of people run for office like we have this time is really healthy for our democracy. And it's healthy to have this level of participation because you can really talk about a number of issues and, try to have those issues and those messages really be a central focus and part of the next term for the members of council. However, I think that as a first-time candidate and as a younger candidate, we will need some type of campaign finance reform to really even out the process and make it fair, for everyday people, like me who have a family, of course, obviously I had to resign to run, I have a husband and 3 children, and just to make the process more fair, and just more apt to have others involved outside of people who have access to capital and dollars.
Yeah. And so we're talking about a public financing system where a certain number of tax dollars be matched at a certain rate to every small dollar donation.
And I think it's time to have a conversation about something like that. Budgeting wise, I think we have other priorities that we need to talk about, specifically related to, the 26% rate of poverty we have in our city and the number of children we have living in deep poverty. But I'm willing and certainly open to have a conversation around, campaign finance reform.
Something that we've been talking about more in this office, and actually we hear more folks talking about it out there in the world, is around our primaries in Pennsylvania. I realize this is not something the city council can legislate, but what are your thoughts around the closed primary system that Pennsylvania has? Does it work okay, or should we change it?
No, again, I think we should have that conversation, and I hope to be a member of Philadelphia City Council to work with our partners in the Pennsylvania General Assembly, and specifically around our Philadelphia delegation to talk about how we can make the process more open and even same-day registration. It's a lot of innovative ideas out there where we can have more people involved in the process, particularly like healthcare workers who work really long shifts. Like I used to work at Pennsylvania Hospital, so sometimes I would work, literally a 16-hour shift. So I would miss, election day. I would have to put in an absentee ballot. So I think we just need to work on making the process more open and more inclusive.
So I mean, another concept or practice that's gotten kind of a surprising amount of media attention is councilmanic prerogative. As you know, like what needs to happen there, if anything? I mean, we have, for the folks at home, this is the power that district council members have to have a say in land decisions in their district, right? And there's an argument for district members to have a say in that stuff because they were elected by folks there. But we've seen instances where things have not probably gone the way they should, and what maybe should change there, if anything?
So I think that the process, again, we should have a written process of exactly what happens, with any type of land disposition in the city of Philadelphia, whether it be through, the land bank, through RDA, any city agency, even PIDC. We should know exactly what that process entails. And we should know the time frame of that process on the front end, and know exactly what's happening. But I do think it's good parts about that process because, for instance, I served on the civic association in my local community, and a developer wanted to build, residential housing in our neighborhood, and the original proposal did not fit the aesthetic of my community. I live in Winfield. It's, a middle neighborhood, and the original proposal just did not look like Winfield. And I think, through councilmanic prerogative, we were able to have the developer come back and talk about how, they could make some changes to the front or the exterior of the property to make the properties look more in line with what we see in Winfield, so those properties would not stand out and look like they were so different. And those properties have been built, and they look like Winfield, even though they're newer properties. So I think there's good, in some other areas for improvement in the process. And I would be willing to work towards that in city council.
Yeah. I feel like I'm hearing some parallels to what we talk about, with redistricting, where like the rules have to be very clear, out in the open, and the politics and the decision making has to be out in the open, and that's where folks get to, voters get to hold folks in office accountable.
Absolutely.
So we have a few minutes, left here. If you were to be joining the next city council, what would be one of your big priorities to get done, and how would you get it done? As you know, like getting stuff done is challenging. It is. As it should be.
You have to get the 9 and hopefully 12 for every measure in Philadelphia City Council. So for me, it's really education and investing in our career and technical education schools. I found working at Overbrook High School that not every young person will go to college, but they should be college or career ready at graduation. So I have an innovative idea around pairing our career and technical education schools with city departments, meaning if there's an automotive technician program, pairing that program with the fleet management department, so those young people have a pathway to employment with the city of Philadelphia, which would mean a family supporting, sustaining job with benefits and with, retirement security. I would like to pair those programs together instead of giving those young people, a pipeline to prison. We talk about how we know by 3rd or 4th grade how many prison cells we'll need to build for young people based on, their academic ability. And I think we need to give them more opportunity to vie for jobs, that they can have right after high school. So career and technical education schools will be number one for me. Figuring out how we can, make a pathway to employment for more of our young people is very, very important to me. And I think ultimately that will help reduce the 26% rate of poverty we have in the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah, I would assume that would require a good deal of cooperation and work with the school board and the mayor and the superintendent. How would you see that playing out, and how do you think things have worked so far? I mean, one of the things folks don't realize about education governance is it's really complex.
It is. It's very complex because you have the school district budget, you have the city council budget, and it's a lot of pieces to that puzzle that need to be put together before everything is said and done. But I think for me specifically around what I would be able to do is have a civil service preference for the young people who complete the program in high school when they apply for city government jobs. Yes, that's a direct way from a city council perspective to have those young people paired with employment opportunities.
All right. Well, we just covered a lot of ground.
Wow.
Just about 15 minutes.
15 minutes is up already.
Yeah. So we will have to wrap it up there.
Okay.
Catherine, thank you for joining us.
Yes.
All the folks at home, Election Day is May 21st. Katherine Gilmore Richardson running for city council at large.
Button number 67. Press button number 67 on Tuesday, May 21.
And because there are a whole lot of candidates, it's a very busy ballot. We urge you to take a look ahead of time. PhiladelphiaVotes.com has the sample ballot available. We also have, with the Committee of 70, a ballot tool where you can actually make your choices ahead of time. Ballot.70.org is where you can find that tool. We also have a new app, We Vote, wherever you download your apps at home. All the resources you could possibly need to be ready to vote for Election Day. Thank you, finally, to Thomas Gelton Harrison for funding this project and giving voters another opportunity to hear from the candidates.
Yes.
So, Catherine,
thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All righty, a few more weeks.
Yes. Take
care.
All righty.
See ya.